Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today. Welcome, Jillian.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here today. We have Jillian Yetter. She is, I want to say my audiobook narrator, but you don't solely narrate for me.
I am yours. I'm your narrator.
Good.
You can
I hope
claim
you're
me.
that way forever. I just have to keep writing books, right?
Yes.
So she is the narrator for the Realm Chronicles series, books 1, 2, and 3. Book 3, To Be a Fae Legend, is releasing officially in March, although if you look on Amazon, you can probably download it, so that's super fun. I met Jillian 3 years ago when you recorded To Be a Fae Queen.
I think it was 2021. Yes, I think it was
Right.
2021, the end of 2021.
Right, so we've done one 2021, 21, 22, and 23, so... And it was super fun. I had the distinction, or To Be a Fae Legend had the distinction of being your 100th narration. So that was super cool too.
Yes, it was such an honor to have this book be my 100th book because it felt like it came full circle. It was actually the first book I ever recorded through a publisher. So I had done several indie books before this, but it was the first book I ever recorded through a publisher. So it already had a special place in my heart. Plus, I always felt really connected with Titania. So the fact that it came back and was my 100th book and that we were able to work that out was just so cool. It was so special.
Yeah, I feel like you could be a Titania twin.
Yes, just out here, just being pink-haired queens.
As soon as Jacqueline Prasso, so to go back for our listeners, To Be a Fae Queen was recorded by the Audio Flow, and Jacqueline Prasso brought Jillian on for that project, and I was just so excited when I heard her voice and then I saw her face. I was like, she is the perfect person to be Titania and bring this book to life.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I immediately felt connected with it. It's right in my genre and I love young adults so much. I was a former English teacher, high school English teacher, so it's right in that age group that I just love working with. So I thoroughly enjoyed being a part of all three of these books so far.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, and for our new listeners, give us a little background about how you got into audiobook narration.
So it was an interesting journey. I always like to say that I walked into this career. I was a high school English teacher and I thought I was going to be doing it forever because I love working with teenagers. I just adore that age group. And I ended up having to leave permanently on disability, which was very boring. I was sick quite a bit, but it was just boring being on disability. And I had never had so much free time in my life. So I started dabbling in, I Googled what to do when you have a master's in English and you aren't a teacher. And it came up, you could be an audiobook narrator. And this was in 2018 that I looked this up. So in January of 2019, officially 5 years ago, I accepted my first audiobook contract and I had no idea what I was doing. It is a much more intense job than I expected. There's a lot more elements that go into it than one, sitting in front of a microphone. And I didn't even have a microphone at the time. My first audition I did from my phone microphone. So I had to real quick get everything set up, do a bunch of online courses of how to narrate an audiobook, how to edit an audiobook. And it took me 3 months to do my first 6-hour book. And that was my only project at the time. And it took me so much time, lots of tears. And since then, I've learned a lot. I've done a lot. I've obviously done a lot more books since then. But I didn't know that this thing that I was using to occupy my time and connect me with literature when I was out of the classroom would end up being my full-time career for the next 5 years onward, as long as they'll have me.
That's so exciting. My skin gets tingly every time I hear your story. It's just, yeah, I mean, it kind of shows you that you never know what's around the corner for you, and that, when one thing goes south or goes left or a way you didn't expect, that there are other things waiting for you.
Yeah, I always like to say that it really saved me because I feel really passionately about books and about literature, and losing my position as a teacher, it was so important to me to educate people and share books with the world. And now I'm just doing it on a different scale with a wider audience. So I still am able to, it's, not the same as educating a classroom full of students, but, it is still promoting a love of literature, and it's promoting the accessibility, which when, as someone with a disability, I have to use accommodations sometimes, and there are times when I can't read a physical book, and an audiobook is my option. And so I love being there for that accessibility so that people can gain a greater access to literature.
The first time I was sort of not, I mean, I knew about audiobooks, obviously, but I had a friend of mine tell me about this, and I can't remember the name of the organization, but here in Denver, and basically they have volunteers that come in and read books and record them for those that are blind or visually impaired. And she said, "Oh, you should take your books there. It would be really great." And sometimes the authors read them. Did I tell you the story before?
No, I didn't know this.
Right. So I took in my books, and there was a young gentleman, probably 22, like interviewing me, and he was like, "Well, do you want to get in the booth and try to read your book?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll do it." I was horrible. He must have thought like,
Oh,
I
no.
read too fast. I like just because I really wasn't prepared to do that. Like I hadn't practiced or rehearsed or anything, and I kept messing up words. And after he said, "Okay, well, we'll contact you if we want you to read, but we have tons of volunteers here." So not surprisingly, they did choose other volunteers to read my book. But
Well, that's okay. You're good with the words. You're good with writing the words. So
yeah.
it's way harder than I expected it to be. When I first, it seems like, oh, you just read a book out loud. And there's so much nuance. There's so many layers to it that you just don't even consider ahead of time, which, I'm fairly comfortable with now. I think I've done like 110 books at this point. But it definitely took me by surprise the first time I sat down and tried to do it.
Well, definitely the first time I got back, so I also recorded the Kingdom Journals, which is this sort of a sister series to this
Mhm.
Realm Chronicles series, with another narrator. And the first time I got back the Excel file from that narrator, she had all the list of the characters and how, what or what am I not pronunciation? What I'm missing a word here. What word am I missing? They're like a southern drawl or like yeah,
Accents and
accent.
dialects,
She
and
was like,
yes.
"What accent should we use for all these characters?" And I was like, "Oh wow, like I have to think about this for a while."
I
So
think that really, for my teacher training, really comes in handy because I do have such like an organized process of really breaking down the characters and asking the pronunciation. Now, with your books, I was fortunate that the audio flow actually provided me with so many resources for book one, with getting started, without, me having to reach out and request that. It was just handed to me. So I assume there was some collaboration behind the scenes where they requested that information from you.
right, definitely. And because I'd already had those other audiobooks recorded, like I knew what to do now, right? I knew to like
Amazing.
give a character list and give like the character profile and where this person was from and what they might sound like and things
Well,
like
and
that.
that was actually one of the holdups I had with To Be a Fae Legend, which is book 3 in the series, is my character voice files from the first 2 books were corrupted. And so I didn't have access to 45 characters' voices. So that was absolutely devastating for me. And I was able to figure it out and go back through the old audio files and find each voice. But that was such a hang up for me because I do have my process so streamlined with the way that I do things for a series so that that doesn't happen and I am able to access that information. So yeah, we got that all sorted. It was fine.
Yeah, and I did. I threw a lot more characters in this book because Titania is being courted by a number 5 different princes, I think it is. And she meets all those like right in the beginning of the book, where part of me as an author was like, oh wait, do I throw all these characters in the beginning or not?
No, I
But
love that you did. I love her journey throughout this book as she goes through and is courted and she, figures out what she wants because in each book she shows so much growth in different areas. And it's just cool to see her grow up as she moves forward and as she comes into her own and figures out what she really wants in this world while also taking into consideration what she needs to do. I think you do a really good job with having that balance there and really showing that inner conflict as she goes through, duty versus desire.
yeah, it is a challenge. I always try to put myself in her shoes, and if I was a fairy princess, I would love to be her.
Yes,
But
agreed.
she does have a lot of challenges. I mean, I think in this book she's still 16, but in the Fae land, that's sort of when they get married. So, imagine you're in today's world, maybe you're 25, but you're still figuring out your life. You're figuring out, well, her career is she's a queen and she's the ruler of
Yes.
her kingdom. And she wants to do right by her people, but she also wants to be happy herself. And how do you figure all of that out?
Certainly. And then you have the contrast of, you have the different realms and the contrast of the human realm, where they are aging at the same way as our current society operates. And so as they're looking at her and she's interacting with them, without giving too much away, it's interesting to see that in the same space, the way that the different realms work.
Right. That, and I think when you recorded that section, it was particularly fun for me to listen to that, of her interacting with the human teenagers. I guess they're kind of special teenagers because they're witches, but they're just human teenagers too.
Yes, yeah, and if it's okay to say, I have to say DJ was just one of my favorites. I don't know how much I'm allowed to give away of this book, but the character of DJ, I really enjoyed narrating.
Well, he was definitely a fun character, and he came in like at the very end of the Kingdom Journal series. He wasn't a major character throughout, so I'm having a lot of fun developing his character as it goes forward. Maybe that's a little foreshadowing, so that's
Yes,
something
yeah.
fun to think about. But yeah, and I'm not sure I have the next book completely formed, so that'll
Okay.
be exciting to see where it goes. And we can recap a little bit for the audience. So, To Be a Fae Queen is the first book in the Realm Chronicle series, and in that book, Titania is handed I guess, for lack of a better, the monarchy. She's handed the rule of her kingdom by her dad, who's decided, hey, it's time, and she's not sure if she wants it, but she embraces it at one point, after a little bit of thought and tribulation. Uh, and then in the second book, To Be a Fae Legend, she is just making sure her kingdom is staying safe, and she has some challenges, um, sort of, that we find out might be inspired or aided by this evil witch, so who is still developing, right, in this series. Can you talk a little bit about Sonia and her voice? Because I particularly love how you've done that.
I absolutely love Sonia's voice and I love exploring the place because it's so different from my narration voice. And I love, she has like evil queen vibes with the way that and she speaks slower and lower and just so malicious. And I really enjoy doing that voice. And I haven't there's not a whole lot of dialogue with her at this point, but I'm assuming moving forward, there could potentially be a little bit more, which I love exploring that part of my voice, and I love voicing that character.
Oh, fun, good, yeah. Because I'm still playing with like a prequel to this series of Sonia's story and
Okay.
figuring out or finding out like why she becomes the evil queen that she or the evil
Ooh, I
she's not a
love.
queen, she's an angel, but the evil angel that she
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Well, fun. What do you have on the horizon for this year?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have been very blessed with my schedule. So I have quite a bit coming up, and it is a balance between a lot of young adult and romance books. So about a year ago, so I have a romance pseudonym, which I don't usually share the actual name, but I don't mind talking about the fact that I have one. About a year ago, some publishers reached out to me and said, we'd like you to do some romance books. And I was exclusively young adult and never really dabbled in the romance world because I didn't know too much about it, to be honest. So it just wasn't a space that I preferred to occupy. So I agreed to take on the contracts, and I worked out my pseudonym, and I have done a lot of books since that time in the past year in the romance space, and I really am starting to love and appreciate and respect the genre. And I'm finding an appreciation for it that, really goes hand in hand with as much as I love voicing young adult books. Um, and I love romance listeners, romance readers. I love the audience there, connecting with them, because, there's so many fans of romance audiobooks. So I'm really enjoying that. And then with the young adult books that I'm excited about all the young adult books I have on the schedule. Um, some really cool ones to note are there's a series that's like a retelling, like fairy tale retellings, and they're just fun. I'd say they're probably same age group as the Chronicle series. And I like doing those because I like getting books out there. I love a coming of age story. I'm obsessed with a coming of age theme. And I like books that my kids can listen to as well, my own children. And speaking of which, my daughter, have I ever showed you the thing she made? Me as it's me as Titania recording to be a Fae guardian. So I keep this in my booth. So I love doing books that I can have my own kids listen to. So, I like doing the grown-up books, but I love doing the younger books as well. So I have a really good balance on the schedule, and I'm really excited about the things that are coming up this year.
Well, fun. Yeah, that is so cute that she made that. I love it.
It's so cute. I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favorite little trinkets. And actually, she just made me so I work for Pink Flamingo, which produced the most recent To Be a Fae Legend. She made me a little crocheted flamingo. She's very talented. So she's just making me all my booth pets that I hang out with in
That
here.
is so cute. I love it. Yes, I was going to say, so Pink Flamingo Productions produced To Be a Fae Legend. So I love their brand because my publishing company is True Bird Publishing. So I feel like we just go hand in hand with the bird family right there.
Yes, it's so cute, and it was such a good fit, and I love that I was able to both narrate and produce it. So, because I actually work for the company, I was able to have my hand in it a little bit more than if I was working outside of the production company. So that was fun having that, and going hand in hand with the marketing of birds is just a cool theme to follow.
Yeah, and we've had so much success. I mean, to be a Fae Guardian, we got the Independent Book Publishers Award. Well, we were a finalist in their YA category, so we got to meet each other live and in person last year in San
So
Diego.
cool.
So that was super fun. Dress up a little bit and celebrate. I loved meeting you in person, and I hope that we can do it again soon.
I hope so too. It was amazing. That was such a cool opportunity. It was my first time coming to the West Coast because I'm based in the East Coast, and it was my first time going. And it was such a fun opportunity to be able to see that area and get to meet an author. And you're just fantastic, and I love working with you. And then, being up for a possible award, and we did quite well. I mean, we won silver, and it was out of quite a few. There were quite a lot of applications for that genre. So I was just thrilled. It was such a dream come true. The whole experience was so cool.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And it's like some of the people that took the stage and talked about their work were just so amazing. It was very fun to be there with you. And I hear that you're coming to Denver next year. Is that correct?
Yes, I will be coming to Denver next year. It hasn't been officially announced yet, but I will be in Denver next year. And I'll actually be in LA. I'll be in California at the end of February. I'll be there for the Audies. I'm excited to go, the Audiobook
Ooh.
Awards. So I'm doing lots of travel, and I will be at conventions all year. I'll be at Beyond the Author Read event, Bray. I think that's what it's called. It's Bray. I'll be in Ohio in May, and then in July I'll be in Connecticut for Romanticon. And in August, I will be in New Orleans for Dark Star Con. And I'm hoping I'll be at Indies Invade Philly again in November. That was my first convention I did last year. And by the way, I am convention addicted now. It's so much fun. I love doing them. Do you have any coming up?
I do. I have Readers Take Denver in April, and I'm doing a couple of locals ones. There's like a mini con in Commerce City, which is a small town around the Denver area. And then I have another one in another town just beside me in March. So like February, March, April, I have all events. Readers Take Denver is the biggest one. I
That
think
is
there's
a big
supposed to
one.
be 3,000 readers coming. So I'm really excited to, and one of the people that was like one of the first bloggers I ever met at my first author event comes to Readers Take Denver. So I got to see her last year, and I'm going to see her again this year. And I'll meet Queen Flamingo Productions there this year. So that will be fun. So that's on my calendar so far, and I'm very excited about those. So,
Yeah,
and
it's really cool.
right, and I love going to reader cons because, and that's actually why I started this podcast, because I was going to 2 or 3 reader events a year, and I was seeing my author friends, seeing the readers, and then when 2020 happened, I didn't have that. Like I had no way to talk to people, so I started the podcast because that way I could talk to all the author I knew and catch up on all their books and let the readers know what was going on. So that's sort of the start of my podcast.
Yes, yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's such a good reason to start to connect with the authors and the readers. I was so surprised when I went to Indies Invade Philly. First of all, they took care of me so nicely. That was such a great event, and I was very surprised at the audience turnout for narrators and people looking to meet their narrators. I guess I underestimated the fan base there. So that was really cool and very eye-opening. I had no idea. I guess I had some concept of it. But I just didn't know that people were coming to these events to see the narrators. And that just inspired me. Like I want to meet people who not only do I want to meet the authors, which is what I thought that event was going to be about, I get to meet listeners and readers of the audiobooks that I record. And that is just so cool. I never thought that that would be a space that I would occupy. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely hearing my books is a different experience for me. I mean, I love reading my own books, and that's kind of, I don't know, it's like patting myself on the back, but I love listening to my books. Like when I'm about to write the next book in the series, every time in the car, I'll have the audiobook on. So I'm remembering what happened last time, and I'm just like submersing myself in the whole experience of that book. And so, yeah, and if there's audiobook narrators that I love, I'll search out their other audiobooks because I love their voice. And sometimes, I'll bought an audiobook and it wasn't the right voice for me. And I was like, so yeah, I always preview now. But so yeah, you get addicted to these
Yes.
voices, and I think you feel like you have a bond with this person too, just like I do a little bit with authors as well.
Yes, and then with social media, and so many narrators are taking to social media spaces, just like authors are, and connecting on Book Talk and Bookstagram. And you really get to see the people behind the books, the people behind the audiobooks, and get to, interact with them on another level. So not only do you have the element of I'm listening to them in the car, but also I can see a glimpse into their life on social media, which is just something that didn't exist so many years ago. So it is very cool, the connections that can be made through podcasts, through listening, through social media connections. Um, and so it's just very special, that all the connections that can be made.
I've heard tons of great things about Indies Take Philly, so, and I have friends there, so maybe I'll put that one on my list.
Yes, yeah, it's a very good event, and I was thrilled to have it be my first one. And if they'll have me back this year, then I would love to go, but they haven't announced 2024 for narrators yet, so we'll see.
Okay, well, I'll have to look into that one too.
Yes.
Well, it's super fun to have you here today. I love the little clip that you played on Instagram and TikTok of when Titania goes and meets the human witches in Upper Earth. So I'm going to put the link to that on this podcast so people can link over and see that too, because I think it's such a fun scene when you read that on social media. So I'll have to put that in there.
Of course. Yeah, that's a fun one because there's just so many character voices. And so you get to see, such interaction there. And I really enjoy that scene. I might re-release that on my social media as well, for promotional purposes for this book as it's coming out, because that is a really cool scene to listen to and to see.
Yeah, it was super fun because I didn't know you were going to do that, and I was like, oh, that's like a super good surprise for my day.
Well, good. I'm so glad to hear that.
Well, thank you for being here, and we will look forward to having you again, hopefully next year when you do the next book to be a Fae. We don't know what it is yet.
To be a Fae something.
A Fae
Well, I would love to
something.
come back.
Well, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.